Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Miss, and today I'm actually going to be reviewing the new cards for the Cyber Style Structure deck. So at the moment, we have Cybernetic Horizon, Cyberdark Chimera, and Cyberdark End Dragon, and this is definitely not the only new cards that we're gonna get. Konami always has a tendency to release around 6, 7, 8 new cards for structure decks, so we can definitely expect more, but don't worry, I'm going to make a detailed video on what kind of info we can actually expect from the structure deck moving forward. And for now, we're actually going to try to see, are these cards any good? Can we actually do something with them right now? Just ignoring the fact, like I said, that we're gonna get even more support. So it's pretty much trying to see the worst case scenario, assuming that the new cards are going to be bad, and if we can actually just work with them, just to make sure that this video is as bearable as possible. I'm always going to start the analysis of every card with the cons and then move into the pros, so it's just gonna make it so I always end on a positive good note. Alright, so the first card is Cybernetic Horizon, the normal spell card, and by the way, I'm actually assuming that you already know the effect of these cards, but if you don't, I will actually put the link in the description where you can actually find their effects. I personally found them on YGO Organization, but that doesn't mean that it's the only website where you can actually find the full official effects. Horizon is actually a card that allows you to search pretty much from your deck to your hand, so it already kind of fulfills the exact same role in a way Cyber Repair Plant and Cyber Emergency does, but I want to say it's better than Repair Plant but worse than Emergency, and the reason why I'm saying that is because at least it doesn't rely on you having anything in your graveyard for you to activate this card, unlike Repair Plant, but it does force you to have either a discard for a Cyberdark or a Cyber Dragon monster, which is kind of lame because if you don't really have those specific cards, well, Cybernetic Horizon is always going to be a brick, and it is obviously objectively less good than Cyber Emergency since it doesn't inherently proactively gets you started. You always need something else, and also on top of that, it loses to Ash quite hard because if you're just discarding something like let's say a Cyber Dragon or a Cyber Dragon Fear or something like that, a card that isn't Hurts or a Cyber Dark monster, so you can actually send the corresponding, like the matching monster from your deck to the graveyard, like Hurts for example, as a cost, you're pretty much always going to go -2 for your opponent ashing you, meaning that relatively speaking, you're going -1 kind of for no reason. So it's pretty much as if, you know, a Melody of Awakening Dragon, discard a spell or trap card, so a card that you don't really want to get rid of, actually gets ashed. It's pretty hard, honestly. There are also some other things that I don't really like about this card, such as the fact that this is randomly a once per turn effect. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like it was broken or that there were loops with this card, like whatsoever. Anything that you can do with this card is very fair. Even sending the fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard is not overpowered because it's not like you could just revive the monster. So it's just a material that you're gonna have for the fusion summoning of a monster that also isn't that broken, and you need a lot of cards to get yourself set up for that. So I don't really know the obsession of Konami with always trying to make everything way too balanced. It's not because a new card is released that it should necessarily be once per turn. I feel like a lot of old cards are not once per turn while they should be, and a lot of new cards are once per turns while they shouldn't be, if you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. Also, the fact that it doesn't search for dragon monsters and only really searches for Cyber or Cyberdark is also quite a turnoff. And by the way, in case you were trying to read this card in a sketchy way, don't go thinking that this card can actually get Cyberstein from your deck to your hand. That is actually kind of not the case, because Cyberstein will get errata'd since it does not technically contain Cyber in its name in the OCG, like in Japanese or whatever. I don't really know too much. It's kind of like Frog the Jam, I don't know if you've heard, where it has frog in the name in the TCG, but in reality it's not a frog monster. So you can't just you can't do the shenanigans that you would have wanted to do. You know, it doesn't work like that. So because of that, Cyberstein is going to be effectively way less good. And also on top of that, as an added bonus, even if Cyberstein doesn't get errata'd and stays Cyberstein and stays searchable, you cannot special summon non-machines the turn you activate this card, and this is bad for two reasons. Not only can you not summon non-machines, as I just said, but also on top of that, I said during the turn you activate this card, not until the rest of the turn. So you can't just go starting with Relinquished Anima or Puzzlemino Drop and Deleter, or something like a Super Poly Target, for example, and then activate Cybernetic Horizon. No, the order doesn't matter. If you summoned anything that wasn't a machine, either before or after whatever, you cannot, well, I mean, after, not, obviously not, but yeah, you won't be able to use Cybernetic Horizon. So unfortunately, this card does clash with quite a lot of engines that you could potentially play in your deck and might actually make some hands infinitely less good. As a matter of fact, it also turns off Salamangreat El Mirage completely. The last disadvantage that I kind of really have to say about this card isn't that bad, but it's the fact that at the moment there isn't much to send with the, you know, Foolish from the extra deck to the graveyard, the Cyber Dragon Fusion, whatever. Well, Cyber Fusion, so it can actually be Cyber Trinity Dragon, which is nice. I guess you can kind of consider this as a pro. The issue is that it doesn't really do do that much proactively. Like, you really still have to play, you know, Overload Fusion and stuff like that so you can summon that Rampage, be unaffected by whatever Bottomless, Breakthrough, Lost Wind. I'm just trying to think of cards that aren't Solemn Strike, because Strike would still work quite well against Rampage. Veiler wouldn't, because your fusion monsters cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, so I guess in a way it's always a nice bonus. It's just not too broken. Yeah, that's it for the cons. Now let's actually get to the really fun, enjoyable part, which are the advantages, so the pros. Well, the most obvious is that it's searchable by Cyberdark Claw, so you can kind of play this as a small little package in your Cyber Dragon deck. I guess in your Cyberdark deck too, but we don't really know if Cyberdark is a deck yet. Still not cohesive. It's not like the deck randomly just got like a new win condition that it could consistently rely on. I just feel like Cyber Dragon, are still the go-to option for any Zane enthusiast. And of course, this card can actually search core, so I guess that's kind of always welcome in a way. I feel like if the only thing that Konami gives us are just searchers, and nothing that has a lot of ceiling, like special summoning from your deck, then maybe this deck is just not going to ever evolve in like a super high level, I don't know, direction or something. It's not like Rockets, which have freaking Quick Launch at 3, because apparently that's fair card design. Oh, and by the way, not once per turn, and Rocket Tracer is a pretty good card, so I don't really understand, you know, the difference in Fossil Dig searches Overraptor, that's also not once per turn, but Emergency, which searches core, is once per turn, so Emergency loses really hard to Ash, even if you draw like 2 or 3 emergencies. That's horrible, because you can't use your other copies. Same thing with Horizon, but Fossil Dig, no. Yeah, I don't know, Konami's probably really biased with all these fan favorite decks, I don't know. And last but definitely not least, it's just a matter of time before you get a good Cyber Fusion monster that gets like a nice effect when it's sent to the graveyard or when it's in the graveyard. Just like Cyber Eternity, there could be a card that's kind of like Titanic Lad, so during the end phase you either get to special summon or search, but it would be nice if this could actually be instantaneous, so it would also make Dragma Punishment even better, or Nadir Servant, but I hope people obviously won't shift to Dragma cards in their Cyber Dragon deck. It would kind of denaturalize and completely defeat the purpose of even playing Horizon in the first place. Alright, that's it for Cybernetic Horizon. Now let's actually get into the second monster, which is, well, I mean, the first monster that I'm going to cover, because I actually started with a spell card, and this one is Cyber End Dragon. Now, I have a lot of negative things to say about this card. Unfortunately, I know this sounds really depressive, but I kind of have to get it out of my chest. I'm making like an honest review, and that's the importance with this video. It's not like I'm trying to sell the archetype or the new cards just because I want people to be hyped over something. I'm just really trying to let you know if this is going to change that much or not. And unfortunately, the thing with Cyber End Dragon is that currently, and I said currently, things could change, but currently this doesn't look like a reliable boss monster. It has a pretty unrealistic summoning condition, and honestly to me, when I read the card, I kind of tell myself, if I can summon this, I can win the game in different ways. Like, you need a lot of resources to get to this card, just so it can randomly out it by, I don't know, access code Talker, because sure, it's unaffected by activated effects, but it has 5,000 attack, and access code summoned with a link 3 already has 53. A lot of decks can do that. You can just randomly play Unicorn in any combo deck, or, you know, Cyber's decks can go transcode, revive back a monster, access code, jump over, destroy a lot of cards. So if you're not interrupting your opponent when you summon a towers, it's not doing anything. Ultimate Falcon Pass, it doesn't cut it. It's not enough, and this card, honestly, to me, really looks similar to Ultimate Falcon Pass. And even then, there are more and more cards to just out the floodgates, like Kaiju's, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, you name it, and this card is only unaffected by activated effects, so it still loses really hard to Scale Drain, Baguska, the list goes on, honestly. There are a lot of cards that this deck still loses to. Lair of Darkness. Yeah, so Cyber End Dragon, to me, is just not a card that's really going to propel Cyber Dragons to the top. Cyber Dark either, I mean, yeah, I don't really know too much, and also, this card, I guess this is a pro this time, this is something nice, is that it can actually equip Dragon Buster Destruction Sword from your graveyard, but the issue is, exactly like I said, Cybernetic Horizon doesn't actually foolish or search for a dragon, generic dragon, but only Cyber Dark or Cyber Dragon monsters that are either a machine or dragon. So yeah, Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, you're actually going to need to hard draw this card and somehow find a way to get in the graveyard, because Horizon, again, doesn't allow you to discard generic cards, which kind of sucks. Anyways, for Cyberdark Chimera, and this is pretty much the last out of the 3 cards. So for the cons, of course, I'm always going to start with that, like I said, just so I can end on a better note. This card unfortunately forces you to discard a spell or trap if you want to search Power Bond. I don't really know why Konami really wanted the discard to be a spell or trap. Why not just a generic card? Come on, because now it's really reminiscent to Summoner Monk. And tell yourself that Summoner Monk has a very broken effect on paper. Discard 1 spell card, summon a level 4 monster from your deck, and it doesn't negate the effect, and it doesn't have any restriction. Now this card searches Power Bond. It also has the well, I mean, it doesn't really have the hardest restrictions in the world. It does have to discard a spell or trap. It's pretty fragile. A single interruption like Ash Veiler, anything kind of just stops it. You have to commit a lot of cards into a fusion summon that's pretty much a choke point in itself, because it's always 3 or more cards to invest in one single monster that just loses to any one card. So in terms of commitment resources, you're not always getting the best ratio, and on top of that, I guess this card doesn't really give much to the Cyber Dragon deck, because Power Bond isn't a card that everybody is excited to play again. I mean, it's a cute card. I like the card. I almost topped the regional with Power Bond in my deck. Sometimes getting that extra attack allows you to do some nasty things. I definitely understand that. It's just that from a completely competitive perspective, it's not the ideal thing. And on top of that, its second effect, to actually Foolish for a Cyberdark monster, currently doesn't actually get us anywhere. This is not going to be necessarily a bad thing, because maybe it means that we're gonna get more Cyberdark monsters that gonna have really nice effects. Like, for example, if this card is sent to the graveyard, draw 1 card or something like that. That could be, no, I mean, for like, by the effect of a Cyberdark or Cyber card, draw 1 card, that would be nice, like I said, but at the moment, we don't really have something like that. I mean, that's pretty much it for the cons. Now, let's get into the pros. First of all, this card, if you didn't realize, has 2100 defense, meaning that it can be revived back with Cyber Dragon next turn, meaning that if you already had to use up your normal summon for something like a core, well, don't worry, because next turn can actually summon it right away from your graveyard, and it's pretty easier to search now. You can actually always have access to at least Foolishing this card, because you don't necessarily have to hard draw it, which is the beautiful part. If you play Horizon, you can actually send like a Hertz, and then send this card, send, you know, go Chainlink 1 Hertz to search, and then Chainlink 2 this Cyberdark to Foolish for something random from your deck to your graveyard. I guess that's really nice, but is it really going to matter too much? I don't think so. There's definitely room for potential, since the cards at least have effects that could set up the future, in a way, if you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. And in a pretty funny way, the fact that it discards a spell or trap might not be that bad, because maybe it pinpoints the fact that Konami really wants to give us like more cyber spell and trap support, like I don't know, maybe a cyber spell that's kind of like a virtual world Gid King Long, where when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and then search for a Cyber Dragon monster, or maybe a trap card where you can banish it and then special summon back a I was gonna say a virtual world monster from your graveyard. Oh, that's a Zhuang Hu ripoff. Yeah, basically kind of like a Zhuang Hu, so that could be very, very nice to have as in future cyber style structure deck support cards. Anyways, in conclusion, that's pretty much all I really had to say for this review. I know it's really hard for me to kind of make a clear and concise critique on these new cards, because we don't really have much information. I'm really trying my best to tell you guys what these cards can currently do without trying to make them look too garbagey, because new cards could definitely make old cards much better, and that's something that you always have to take into consideration. So that's all I had to say for this video. If you guys have any comments or feedback or anything, please make sure you leave them in the comment section below. It's always really appreciated to read your comments, because yeah, especially for the cyber style cards, people are always super excited, man. I understand that it's a fan favorite deck. I mean, my favorite deck too, so I get you on that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.